Before my 80th birthday, I had always believed I was lucky. I had everything I could ask for: a wealthy family, adoring parents, and a perfect life. I was their only child, and they treated me as if I were their greatest treasure. Growing up, I took over the family company with ease, without much of a struggle. My love life was smooth too. I married Jason, the boy my parents had sponsored since he was young. He was charming, respectful, and loved me deeply, or so I thought. We had no children of our own, and I was content with our choice to adopt. We found Sophie, a sweet girl who seemed to be perfect in every way. She was everything I could ask for in a daughter: obedient, loving, and full of potential. I gave her everything: my love, my attention, and my trust. When she grew older, I arranged for her to join the company and started setting up her future. I thought I was living a blessed life, untouched by any misfortune. But that belief shattered on the day of my 80th birthday. It began as a regular birthday celebration. Jason wheeled me into the lavish party, and Sophie stood by my side, smiling sweetly. But as the night wore on, something felt off. My mind had been sharp, but my body was failing me. I had spent my life giving and loving, never once thinking about what others might do behind my back. I had never considered betrayal, not from Jason, not from Sophie. But everything changed that day. Jason's eyes turned cold, a sneer spreading across his face. "You've lived your life without any care for anyone but yourself, haven't you?" he said, his words like daggers to my heart. I looked at him, confused. But his face was no longer that of the loving husband I had known. "Rachel was a young girl I sponsored before I met you. I loved her. I wanted to be with her, but you ruined that," he continued, his voice growing more venomous. The shock hit me like a wave. Rachel, the girl he had spoken of so kindly once, the girl who had died because of circumstances I never knew. I felt my hands tremble as Jason's words continued. "You could have helped her. You could have spared a little money, but you didn't. And because of that, Rachel's dead, and you're still here living your comfortable life." His laugh was bitter. "I should have been with Rachel. You took that away from me, and now it's time for you to feel what she went through." Sophie stood beside him, her face blank, her eyes hard. "You didn't give her the money. You ruined her life, and you ruined mine. I'm not your daughter, and I'm not sorry. You deserve everything that's coming to you." It felt like the world was crashing down around me. My daughter, my Sophie, was telling me she hated me. My heart shattered into pieces as I tried to comprehend the cruelty in her voice. "You were never my real mother. You ruined everything," she screamed, her voice echoing through the room. And then Jason's words cut deeper. "Sophie is my daughter. She's Rachel's daughter. I've been raising her all these years, and I've been waiting for the right moment to take everything you have. Everything you've worked for, everything you've given, will now be mine." The reality hit me like a thunderclap. 2 days earlier, I had signed a will under Jason's gentle persuasion. I thought it was just a precaution, a way to keep everything in the family. But now, I realized it was a weapon in their hands. I tried to fight back, but my voice faltered as they pushed me toward the rooftop. My mind raced. My life, my company, everything I had worked for was slipping away in front of my eyes. Jason's cold words rang in my ears as they wheeled me out, and I could hear his smug satisfaction. "This is your retribution," he sneered. "You won't get to keep anything, not even your dignity." With one last push, they sent me over the edge. My body hit the ground with a sickening thud, and in an instant, I was gone. But that wasn't the end. That wasn't the end at all. I woke up, not in the afterlife, but in the body of my 17-year-old self, back in the classroom I had once sat in. The world around me felt unfamiliar, yet it was familiar too. My memories, my anger, my hatred, everything from my previous life rushed back. And I realized I had been given a second chance. A chance to right the wrongs I had made, to stop the betrayal before it happened. I immediately called my parents, still shaken by the weight of what had just occurred. "Stop funding Jason and Rachel," I demanded, my voice filled with cold determination. "Do not give them another cent. Cut them off completely." They hesitated, but I was adamant. I couldn't let them get away with it again. "Are you being bullied, dear?" My mother's worried voice echoed through the phone, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. In my past life, I had never fully appreciated them. I had let Jason and Rachel manipulate me for so long that even in my death, they were still suffering. "No, Mom, I'll handle it myself. Just cut off their funding. I repeated, and they agreed. Later that afternoon, I saw Rachel outside my school, looking as pitiful as she had when I first met her. Her school uniform barely covered her slightly swollen belly. She looked around nervously before approaching me, and for a moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy. But that quickly faded when I remembered everything she would do to me in the future. "Samantha," she said in a soft voice, tears filling her eyes. "I need to talk to you. Please, can we go somewhere private?" She looked like the victim, but I wasn't buying it anymore. In my previous life, I had agreed to her request and followed her into a secluded spot. But this time, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I had learned my lesson. "Sorry, I'm not interested," I said, turning away to walk back to class. "Don't go," she begged, her voice breaking, but I wasn't fooled by her tears. I turned back, determined not to let her manipulate me again. "Stop this act, Rachel. You're not going to guilt trip me into anything," I shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Help. Someone's trying to guilt trip me. Someone's trying to set me up." The commotion immediately drew a crowd, and Rachel's face turned pale. She tried to maintain her composure, but it was clear that she was losing control. "Rachel, if you need help, ask for it. Don't try to manipulate me. I'm not going to fall for it." The crowd began to murmur, and Rachel, realizing she had no way to escape, dropped her act. "Can you give me some money? Just lend me a few $100,000, please." The words left her lips with a coldness that shocked me. The students around us gasped. "A few $100,000? Are you serious?" Someone muttered. I raised an eyebrow and shook my head. "I have money, Rachel," I said coldly. "But why should I just hand it over to you for no reason?" "Please," she cried. "I need it. I won't take the college entrance exam unless you help me." "Don't you want to help me?" I couldn't help but laugh. "In my past life, you used the same threat, and in this life, I'm not falling for it again. Your future is not my responsibility, Rachel." The murmurs grew louder. People were starting to see through her act, and her pitiful facade was crumbling. "What's wrong with you?" someone said. "You're asking for money like this?" Rachel's face flushed with anger. "How dare you?" she shouted. But no one was paying attention anymore. She was losing the crowd, and I knew it was over. As Rachel's voice grew quieter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The same girl who had manipulated me in my past life, who had used every trick in the book to guilt trip and exploit my kindness, was now nothing more than an exposed fraud. The once soft-hearted girl I had once believed was deserving of my sponsorship had shown her true colors. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. I had wasted too much of my life caring about people who would never appreciate me. Jason, too, had long taken me for granted, believing that his position in life was secure simply because of my support. But the cracks were starting to show. And as I watched Rachel scramble to salvage whatever dignity she had left, I couldn't help but see the irony. This was the same woman who had begged me for money in my past life, who had used her pregnancy as a weapon to extract resources from me. She had manipulated me then, and I had foolishly fallen for it. But not this time. Not again. When Rachel saw that the crowd wasn't on her side, her face contorted with frustration. She took a step back, glancing at the door in a desperate attempt to escape. "You think you can ruin me like this?" she hissed. But I wasn't intimidated by her outburst. She was losing her grip, and I knew it. The more she protested, the more I realized just how far I had come. In my previous life, I had let my compassion cloud my judgment, letting others take advantage of me. But now, with the memories of my past experiences flooding my mind, I had become someone stronger, someone who knew what it meant to stand up for herself. I gave Rachel one last look, my eyes sharp and calculating. "You won't manipulate me anymore," I said, my voice steady. "You've already thrown away your chance." I turned away from her, and as I did, I noticed Jason standing in the background, his face twisted with anger. He had been waiting for the perfect moment to step in, but he was too late. The crowd had already formed their opinions, and it was clear they weren't buying into his act either. "Jason, you really think I don't know what you're up to?" I called out, not bothering to turn around. "You've been feeding off my generosity for years, and now you think you can come back into my life like nothing ever happened?" He sneered at me, his hands clenched into fists. "You have no idea what it's like to give everything up, to be nothing, to have nothing. I didn't choose this life. You took everything from me." I spun around to face him, my anger rising to the surface. You didn't choose this life. You made your choices, Jason, and now you're going to have to live with them. His face reddened with fury, but I didn't flinch. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when everything he had stolen from me was going to be taken back, and I wasn't going to back down. You want me to feel sorry for you? I said, stepping closer to him. You want me to beg for your forgiveness? You betrayed me, Jason. You betrayed everything I ever did for you. And now you think you can waltz back into my life and continue where we left off. You've got another thing coming. The venom in my words was undeniable, and Jason looked momentarily stunned. I could see the guilt flashing in his eyes, the realization dawning on him that the power had shifted. You're nothing without me, he spat, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. Without my support, you'd be nothing. I met his eyes and smiled coldly. That's where you're wrong. I've already lived my life for you and Rachel, but now I'm living it for me, and you're not going to stop me. Jason opened his mouth to say something else, but the words died on his lips. It was as if he could sense the shift in the air, the realization that I was no longer the same person who had been easily manipulated by him. The woman who had once bent over backward to please him and Rachel was gone, replaced by someone who was no longer willing to be a pawn in their twisted game. Before he could respond, the teacher arrived, followed by a few of the school staff. Jason's anger was palpable as he tried to defend Rachel, but no one was listening anymore. The truth was out, and the facade he had carefully built up for years had crumbled in an instant. As the staff took Jason and Rachel away, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. For the first time, I wasn't being dragged down by the weight of their lies. I had confronted them, and I had won, but this was just the beginning. Later that evening, as I sat alone in my room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. I had just exposed the first layer of deception, but I knew Jason and Rachel were far from finished. They wouldn't give up so easily, and I was certain that their next move would be even more dangerous. I picked up my phone and called my parents. They hadn't heard the full story yet, but I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. I've cut them off completely, I told them, my voice firm. They won't get another penny from me, and I don't want you to support them either. They've shown their true colors, and I'm done with them. My parents were shocked, but they didn't argue. We'll trust your judgment, Samantha, my mother said softly, but just be careful. You've already been through so much. Don't let them hurt you again. I promised I would be careful, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down. Jason and Rachel had already shown how far they were willing to go to get what they wanted, and I wasn't going to be the victim this time. The next few days were filled with whispers and rumors. Jason and Rachel tried to spread lies about me, but their words fell on deaf ears. My classmates, once loyal to Rachel, had begun to see her for what she truly was: a manipulator, a liar, a user. The sympathy I had once given her had evaporated, and now people were turning away from her, just as I had. But that wasn't the end. I knew Jason would try something else, and this time, I had to be ready. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life again. The days following my confrontation with Rachel and Jason were filled with a sense of quiet triumph, but I couldn't afford to relax. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the battle ahead pressing down on me. I had exposed their lies, but I knew they wouldn't give up without a fight. Jason was stubborn, and Rachel, though broken, still had a fierce, dangerous streak in her. They were desperate, and desperation always led to unpredictable actions. At T-school, the atmosphere had shifted. The whispers about Rachel's pregnancy and her behavior had reached everyone, but there was more. Jason's image, once that of the charming boy I had trusted, had started to crack. My classmates began to ask questions about the kind of man he truly was, and slowly the walls around him began to close in. He was no longer the victim in everyone's eyes, and I saw him faltering in ways he never had before. That night, I sat in my room, the events of the day replaying in my mind. I had made the first move, but the chessboard was far from empty. Jason would retaliate. Rachel would find another way to manipulate me, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I was stronger. I had been given a second chance at life, and I wasn't about to waste it. The phone rang, breaking my thoughts. I picked it up, and my mother's voice crackled through. Samantha, are you sure about this? Cutting them off completely, do you think it's safe? Her concern was genuine, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. My control over my own life. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply Jason and Rachel had embedded themselves into my existence, how much of my life they had consumed, unknowingly suffocating me. I'm sure, Mom, I said firmly. This isn't about them anymore. It's about me taking back what's mine, and I won't let them ruin my future. I won't let them ruin you and Dad either, she sighed, and I could feel the weight of her worry in her voice. Just promise me you'll be careful. Don't let them drag you down like last time. I promise, I said, though the doubt lingered. I knew what it was like to be dragged down. I had lived it. I wasn't about to let it happen again. The next morning, I went to school with a renewed sense of purpose. The air was different now, as if the walls had shifted, and I could finally breathe. My classmates still whispered, but their attention wasn't on me anymore, it was on Rachel. They were beginning to see her for what she really was. The pity that had once surrounded her had turned to disgust. And Jason? He was becoming a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. But still, I couldn't let my guard down. The bell rang, signaling the start of class, and I took my seat, determined not to show any weakness. I wasn't going to let Rachel or Jason see how much they had hurt me. I had to remain strong for myself. And as the lessons continued, I caught a glimpse of Rachel in the hallway, standing outside the classroom with a new look in her eyes. She was no longer the crying, pleading girl she had been. This time, there was something darker, there's something colder. It was the look of someone who had been cornered, and I knew she was going to lash out. After school, as I walked toward the exit, I saw Jason waiting by the gates, a look of determination on his face. I felt my heart sink. I had known this moment was coming. He had come to confront me. He was about to make his move. Samantha, he called, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. We need to talk. I stopped in my tracks, turning to face him. There was no fear in my eyes. I had already faced him down once, and I wasn't going to let him manipulate me again. What do you want, Jason? I asked, keeping my voice steady. You've made your intentions clear. You've tried to ruin my life, but I'm not going to let you do it again. His eyes flashed with anger, but there was something else in them too. Desperation. You don't understand, he said, stepping closer. You think you can just cut me off, but you're wrong. I'll make sure you regret it. You can't get rid of me that easily. I stood my ground, not flinching. I'm done with you, Jason. You've used me for years, and I'm not going to let you do it anymore. You have no power over me now. You never did. His face twisted in fury, and I could see the anger building inside him. You're nothing without me, he hissed, his fists clenched. You think you're some big shot, but you're nothing without me. Without me, you're just a lonely, pathetic woman who had everything handed to her. You didn't have to work for any of it. I met his gaze without hesitation. No, Jason, I worked hard for everything I have. I built my life, and I won't let you tear it down. There was a long pause as his anger simmered, and I saw the realization begin to dawn on him. He couldn't manipulate me anymore. He couldn't control me. For the first time, I saw the fear in his eyes, but before he could speak again, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, speechless. The following days felt like a turning point. Rachel and Jason tried their best to intimidate me, but I stood strong, never showing any signs of weakness. They were beginning to crack, and I could see their frustration building, but I knew they wouldn't give up. I had to keep my guard up. One afternoon, as I sat in the school courtyard, I received a message from my parents. It was short, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. We've been getting calls. Rachel is spreading rumors about you. She's telling people you're trying to destroy her. I closed my eyes, trying to calm the storm inside me. Rachel was cornered. She was lashing out because she knew she had lost. But I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let them destroy my life again. This time, I was in control. I called my parents. Immediately. Don't worry, I'll take care of this, I said, my voice steady. I won't let Rachel and Jason ruin me again. Later that day, I confronted Rachel in front of the entire school. She was surrounded by a group of students, and they were hanging on to every word she said. But this time, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. I wasn't going to let her drag me down into the depths of her lies. As I approached, I could feel the eyes of everyone on us. The tension in the air was thick, but I stood my ground. Rachel, I called, loud enough for everyone to hear. You think you can make me the villain in your story. You think you can make me the bad guy, but I'm not going to let you do that anymore. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at me, but she didn't say anything. The crowd around us was beginning to murmur, and I could see their judgment forming. I've done nothing but try to help you, I continued, my voice unwavering. And this is how you repay me, by spreading lies and trying to ruin my life? I'm done with you, Rachel. I'm done being your pawn. The tension in the air thickened. As Rachel's face flushed with anger, her lips trembling as she tried to muster a response, but no words came. For a brief moment, I could see the fear in her eyes. The crowd around us, who had once been sympathetic to her, was now starting to see her true colors. I could feel the weight of the moment, the shift in power that had finally arrived. The control was in my hands now, and I wasn't about to let go. You think you can destroy me with rumors, Rachel? I said, stepping closer to her, my voice steady and sharp. You think I'll cower, that I'll let you manipulate me again? Not anymore. A few students whispered among themselves, casting glances between Rachel and me. I could see them beginning to form their opinions, and I knew this was it. This was the moment when everything changed for her. Her image as the innocent victim was crumbling before their eyes. You're nothing but a liar, I said, my words clear and precise. And I won't stand here and let you ruin everything I've worked for. You'll get no more sympathy from me or anyone else. Rachel's eyes glistened with tears, but they weren't the tears of someone wronged. They were the tears of a person who had been caught in a lie, and I wasn't going to let her play the victim any longer. Her shoulders slumped, and for a fleeting second, I almost felt sorry for her. But that moment passed quickly. I had already given her far too many chances in my previous life, and now, in this one, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I turned away from her, walking towards the exit, the whispers of the crowd fading into the background. Behind me, I could hear Rachel's voice rising, but I didn't turn back. She had no more power over me. The next few days were strangely quiet. Jason and Rachel, realizing they had lost their hold over me, began to retreat into the shadows. I knew they were planning something people like them always did, but I refused to let fear take root. They had underestimated me once, and now I knew I was capable of far more than they ever imagined. At home, my parents noticed the change in me. They could see the calmness in my demeanor, the confidence I had gained from standing up to Rachel and Jason, but they were also worried. I could tell by the way they looked at me, the unspoken concern in their eyes. Samantha, my mother said one evening as I sat at the dinner table, are you sure about all this? The way you're handling things with Rachel and Jason. It's not like you to be so firm, so cold. I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. The question caught me off guard, and I set the utensil down, looking at my mother. Mom, I've spent my whole life being kind, being the person everyone wanted me to be. But look where that got me. I let Jason and Rachel use me, manipulate me, and for what? To be betrayed in the end? My mother's eyes softened, and she reached across the table to take my hand. But you've always been the empathetic one, the one who wants to help, to fix things. Maybe I was too empathetic, I said, my voice firm. In my last life, I gave, and it was never enough. This time, I'm doing things differently. I'm protecting myself, and I won't apologize for it. She sighed, squeezing my hand. I understand. Just be careful, Samantha. You've been through so much already. Don't let this bitterness consume you. I nodded, though a part of me knew that bitterness was necessary. I had to protect myself, and if that meant being colder, more calculating, then so be it. This time, I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me again. The days that followed were filled with tension, though not from Rachel or Jason. They had retreated, licking their wounds, but the unease in the air still lingered. It was as if I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had no illusions they wouldn't go down easily, but I wasn't going to wait around for their next move. I was going to take control of my life, once and for all. A week later, I found myself standing in front of my parents, a decision on the tip of my tongue. They had been supportive, but I knew they were also waiting for me to make the next move. Mom, Dad, I began, my voice steady. I've decided to take the company back into my own hands. I'm going to run it myself. I won't let anyone take what's rightfully mine. My father raised an eyebrow, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You've always been a force to be reckoned with, Samantha. If anyone can do it, it's you. I could see the pride in his eyes, and it gave me strength. It was time to reclaim everything I had worked for. I was no longer the passive woman I had once been. I had learned from my past life, and this time, I wouldn't let anyone control my future. The next day, I began making the necessary moves. I started by cutting all ties with Jason and Rachel, officially severing their connection to the company. I had the board members on my side, and they all agreed that the company would thrive under my leadership. I wasn't about to let anyone, especially Jason and Rachel, stand in my way. I spent hours poring over documents, reorganizing the company's financial structure, and making strategic decisions that would secure its future. It felt like the world had opened up before me, and for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. I wasn't just running the company, I was taking back my life. But then, just as I thought I could breathe, I got a phone call that changed everything. Mrs. Samantha, my assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. You need to come down to the lobby. There's someone here to see you. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. My instincts told me it was Jason. He had been quiet for too long, and I knew he wasn't done with me yet. When I arrived in the lobby, I saw him standing there, waiting. His once confident posture was now slumped, and his eyes held a mix of desperation and anger. You've made a huge mistake, Samantha, he said, his voice trembling with fury. You can't just throw me out of your life. You owe me everything. You don't know what you've done. I stared at him. The emotions that had once swelled in my chest, love, pity, even fear, now replaced by cold detachment. No, Jason, I said, my voice unwavering. I owe you nothing. You've made your bed, and now you'll have to lie in it. He stepped forward, his anger boiling over. You think you can do this alone? You think you can shut me out and just walk away with everything? I've already walked away, I said firmly, and I won't let you or anyone else stop me. You can threaten me all you want, but it's over. Jason's face twisted in rage, but I didn't flinch. This time, I wouldn't let him control me. I had learned that lesson the hard way, and this time, I wasn't afraid of him. Jason's anger was palpable, but it didn't faze me. I had already come so far, standing on the precipice of reclaiming everything I had lost, and there was no turning back now. His words, his threats, they all seemed so insignificant. I had faced worse in my past life and come out stronger. This time, I wasn't the same naive woman who had let him manipulate me. You think I'll just let you go, Samantha? Jason sneered, stepping closer, his voice low and dangerous. You owe me everything. Without me, you'd still be nothing. You'd still be that helpless, pampered girl, playing dress up with the company your father built. I took a deep breath, my heart steady, my mind sharper than ever. I don't owe you anything, Jason. The only person I owe anything to is myself. I'm done living for other people. This is my life, and I'm taking control of it. He took another step, his anger mounting, but I stood my ground. You know, I thought I'd feel some kind of guilt, I said, my tone calm, almost too calm for his liking. But I don't. I've wasted enough of my time trying to make others happy. You're right about one thing, without you, I was nothing. But I'm not that person anymore, and I'm never going back. His eyes darkened, and I could see the gears turning in his head. You're making a huge mistake, Samantha. You really think you can do this on your own? You'll see. You'll regret cutting me out of your life. I'm not the only one you'll lose. The following days were a whirlwind. Jason and Rachel's efforts to sabotage me were escalating. They were spreading rumors, creating chaos, trying to turn people against me. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I had the support of the board members, the respect of my colleagues, and most importantly, the knowledge that I could no longer afford to be kind to people who had only ever used me. I wasn't going to let Jason and Rachel destroy me. I had rebuilt my life once already, and I would do it again if I had to. They were the ones who had underestimated me. They thought I was weak, that I would crumble under their pressure. But now, I was fighting back, and I wasn't about to stop. And then, just when I thought I was getting a handle on things, Jason made his move. The sound of my office door opening made me look up, and there he was, standing in the doorway, his face twisted in fury. He was holding something in his hand, and I knew immediately that it was something dangerous. You really think you can just throw me out of your life, Samantha? He spat, his voice filled with rage. You think you can walk away from everything we built together? You owe me everything, and you're going to pay for what you did. I didn't flinch. Jason, I said calmly, standing up to face him, you're done. You've lost. and you're not going to drag me down with you anymore." Jason's eyes darkened as he took a step closer, still holding that piece of paper, his grip tight, as if it was his last bargaining chip. The anger in his eyes was unmistakable, but there was something else to fear. Jason was afraid. Deep down, he knew that he had lost, but he wasn't ready to accept it. "You think I'm going to let you walk away so easily?" he snarled, his voice shaking with rage. "This company, this life, it's mine. You can't just toss it aside like it's nothing. I've sacrificed too much to lose it now, and I'll make sure you lose everything too. Everything you've worked for." I stared at him, unblinking, my heart beating with a calm intensity that surprised even me. "I don't owe you anything, Jason," I said, my voice cold. "You've taken enough from me already. This is where it ends. You've been nothing but a parasite in my life, and I'm done letting you feed off me." His hand trembled slightly as he waved the paper in front of me. "You think you can walk away? You think this is over? You're wrong. I'm going to expose everything. The company, your parents, all of it. I'll make sure no one will ever trust you again. I'll ruin your reputation, Samantha." For the first time in years, I saw something shift in me, something I had been holding back. Anger. Not the anger of someone scorned, but the anger of someone who had been pushed too far, who had been used for far too long. I had given Jason and Rachel more than enough chances. I had allowed them to make a fool of me, to make a fool of everything I had worked for. But not anymore. I took a step forward, my eyes locked onto his, my resolve hardening. "You can't ruin me, Jason. You already tried, and you failed. I've already built something stronger than your threats. Your lies are just noise. You're not in control anymore." Jason's face twisted, his expression shifting between anger and disbelief. "You think you can just throw me away? You're nothing without me. I made you. I gave you everything." The words stung, but I didn't let them break me. "No, Jason. I made myself. You never gave me anything. You took, you manipulated, and you used me. I'm done being your pawn." Jason's eyes narrowed as he took another step forward, his voice now dripping with venom. "You'll regret this. I'm going to make sure you do." I held my ground, my heart beating steadily as I stared him down. "No, Jason, you're going to regret underestimating me. You'll see what happens when I finally take control of my life." Jason paused, his expression faltering for just a moment before he managed to find his footing again. He stepped back, looking at the paper in his hand as if he was trying to gather his thoughts. But I could see the cracks in his facade, the fear creeping into his eyes. "You've already lost, Jason," I said, my voice quieter now, but no less firm. "I won't let you destroy me again. You can't take what's mine." In the days that followed, Jason's threats didn't stop. He continued to send messages, trying to intimidate me, trying to get me to bend to his will. But it only made me more resolute. I knew he was desperate, and desperation made people do crazy things. Sophie, on the other hand, seemed torn. She reached out to me again, and I could tell she was conflicted. There were times when I saw a glimpse of the girl I had raised, the one who had so much potential. But then there were the moments when she was still stuck in the shadow of Jason. And Rachel, she wanted to break free, but she didn't know how. I tried to guide her, but I knew the road to redemption wasn't simple. She had a long way to go, and I couldn't do it for her. She had to make the choice to change, and until she did, I couldn't let her back into my life completely. A week later, the bombshell came. Jason had followed through with his threats. He had contacted the media, attempting to leak false information about me, my company, and my parents. He tried to paint me as a manipulative, selfish person, someone who had destroyed lives for the sake of money and power. The articles started circulating, and the rumors began to spread like wildfire. But this time, I was ready. I had already anticipated that Jason would try to sabotage me, and I had taken precautions. I had gathered evidence, emails, texts, documents, anything that could expose his lies and manipulations. With everything in place, I fought back. I called a press conference, determined to take control of the narrative. The media gathered, and I stood before them, my resolve unshaken. "I am here to address the lies that have been spread about me," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I have worked my entire life to build my company and my legacy, and I will not let anyone destroy that with false accusations. Jason has tried to manipulate and control me for years. He is the one who has lied, who has schemed, and now he's trying to destroy everything I've worked for." The reporters watched, captivated by my words, and I could see the shift happening in the room. Jason's lies were starting to unravel. I held up the documents I had gathered, evidence that proved the truth. "These are the real facts," I said, showing them to the crowd. "The truth always comes to light, no matter how hard people try to hide it." For the first time in months, I felt a sense of relief. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long was finally beginning to lift. Jason and Rachel's power over me was fading, and I could feel myself starting to breathe again. But as the press conference ended and the reporters left, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jason wasn't done yet. He was dangerous, and I knew that he would never give up. But this time, I was ready. This time, I had the power. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Sophie. "I'm sorry, Samantha. I've made a huge mistake. I see now what I've done. I don't want to be like them anymore. I want to make things right." It was the first time in a long while that I felt a flicker of hope. Sophie was finally realizing the consequences of her actions. It wasn't going to be easy for her to change, but at least she was starting. I didn't know what the future held for her, but I knew that if she was truly ready to change, I could help guide her. But there was still a long road ahead. I couldn't forget what they had done, what they had tried to take from me. Jason, Rachel, they were still out there, and I wasn't going to let them win. The days following Sophie's message were filled with a sense of cautious optimism. I wasn't ready to trust her completely, not yet. But she had made the first step. She had recognized the wrongs she'd committed. I had to give her that, and for the first time, I considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for her to change. But I had learned my lesson. Hope couldn't blind me to reality. Not anymore. Jason, however, wasn't as easy to dismiss. His latest attempt to ruin me had failed spectacularly, but I knew him well enough to understand that he wouldn't just lie down. He was like a cornered animal, and cornered animals were at their most dangerous. It was only a matter of time before he found a new way to lash out. I spent the next few days strengthening my position. I worked with my legal team, reviewing every document, every contract, every loophole Jason might try to exploit. I was done being passive. I was done being the victim. I had learned how to fight back, and I wasn't going to stop now. The company was mine, and I was going to make sure it stayed that way. Then came the call that would test everything. It was a Sunday morning, the day I had planned to relax and regroup. My assistant's voice cut through the stillness. "Mrs. Samantha, I'm sorry to bother you, but we've got a situation. There's an urgent matter you need to attend to." I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's going on?" "It's about Sophie," she said, and my stomach dropped. "She's been involved in a serious accident. We don't know the details yet, but she's in the hospital. The doctors said you should come quickly." Sophie? My adopted daughter. The one I had tried so hard to protect. The one I had just begun to rebuild a relationship with. This couldn't be happening. I grabbed my coat and rushed to the hospital, my mind racing. When I arrived at the hospital, I was led straight to the emergency room. Sophie was lying unconscious on a stretcher, a large bandage wrapped around her head. Her face was pale, and her body was bruised and battered. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness, of fear that I hadn't felt in years. "Is she going to be okay?" I asked the doctor, my voice shaking. The doctor hesitated for a moment before responding. "She's stable for now. The next 24 hours are critical. We're doing everything we can, but it's too soon to tell." I nodded numbly, taking a seat beside Sophie's bed. I didn't know how to feel. I had spent so many years trying to protect her, to give her a future, and yet here she was caught in the consequences of her own choices. The legacy of Jason and Rachel's manipulations hanging over her like a shadow. I could see the weight of it in her frail, unconscious form. She had paid the price for their sins, just as I had. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces. The next few hours dragged on, my mind swimming with questions I couldn't answer. How had this happened? Why hadn't I been there for her when she needed me the most? I thought about everything we'd been through, the promises I had made to protect her. But in the end, had I really done enough? Was it too late? Around midnight, Sophie finally woke up, her eyes fluttering open. She looked confused, disoriented, and as soon as she saw me sitting there beside her, a flicker of recognition passed across her face. "Samantha," she whispered, her voice weak. I took her hand gently. "I'm here, Sophie. You're going to be okay." She shook her head slightly, wincing from the pain. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it got this far. I squeezed her hand. It's not your fault, I said softly, my heart aching for her. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that you're alive. You have a chance to change things. Sophie's eyes welled up with tears, and for the first time, I saw the girl I had once raised, the girl who had been lost in the chaos of Jason and Rachel's world, but who now seemed to realize the full extent of her choices. I don't know how to fix it, she cried. I've made so many mistakes. I hurt you. I hurt myself. I leaned down, wiping away a tear from her cheek. You don't have to fix everything at once, Sophie. Just take it one step at a time. You can change, but you have to want it. You have to fight for it. She nodded, her tears still flowing, but there was a new determination in her eyes. I want to. I really do. I held her hand tighter, my heart full of a strange mix of hope and fear. I had given up on her once, but now I had to decide if I was ready to trust her again. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and there would be pain. But in that moment, I realized that this was my second chance to not just for Sophie, but for myself. I couldn't let my past mistakes define me, and I couldn't let them define Sophie either. In the weeks that followed, Sophie made slow progress. She was still recovering from her injuries, but emotionally, she had begun to confront the truth about her past. Jason's influence over her had been more damaging than I had realized, and the toll it had taken on her was immense. But she was trying, and that in itself was a victory. Jason, of course, didn't take this lying down. I knew he would use Sophie's accident as leverage, trying to manipulate me into giving him what he wanted. But this time, I was prepared. He wouldn't get to control me or anyone I loved. I wasn't going to let him win.